as I get my screen back to a normal size again. No, I didn't. I solved almost all issues I had with the computers, but the zooming thing, I never solved it. And then on top of that, I had some issues with the internet. But here we are, we're back to normal. This is my offering for you for today for a quote. A thought for the day, actually. The one who knows others is wise. The one that knows oneself is enlightened. And that was from Tao Te Ching. You're wise if you know others. You are enlightened when you know yourself. How about that? That's pretty good. The title of today's reading is called Lwa Manifest in Our Lives. And once again, the quotes are both from Marcus Aurelius, first one, and Ernest Holmes, the second one. So Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. All things are ordered by a single intelligent principle, which penetrates and governs the whole. So almost 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius saying the same thing. We believe that the universal spirit, this is Ernest Holmes, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God. And later on, Reverend John explains that. And that's, of course, once again, from what we believe. He goes on to say, in our exploration of spiritual principles, we already have established universal spirit as the all-pervasive presence, absolute intelligence and life force from which all of creation emanates, which is saying the same thing that Marcus Aurelius did, but in a slightly different way. Spirit is absolute cause, and that's with capital C, the source of literally everything. It is what animates the universe, and I'd say the omniverse, and does what it does through what we call spiritual law or divine mind. He says, Ernest Holmes uses the term mind interchangeably with law. What he's referring to there is the universal subjective, by the way. Mind is impersonal and dependable. Why? It's dependable in receiving our thoughts and in processing them into form. This means that our thoughts, our beliefs, and our intentions directly shape our experiences. A little bit more about this shortly. The word law may suggest that a deity is imposing some control or authority over us. But this is not the case. Law is best illustrated through what we call the teaching symbol. The teaching symbol is something Ernest Holmes established. And Reverend John says it's a circle with two horizontal lines delineating cause, law, and effect. Well, when it's a circle, and in the circle is a V. And the V touches the bottom of the circle, and the upper arms of the V touch the top of the circle. And then through that V, touching both sides of the circle, are horizontal lines, two horizontal lines. And the top part of the horizontal line represents the universal conscious mind. The middle part represents the universal subjective, and the bottom part represents form. So the V is showing that things come from universal mind through the universal subjective into form. And then ultimately, everything, of course, goes back to spirit. So it goes up on the other side of the V through the universal subjective and back into first cause. So that's really more of an explanation of what that V is. And he says, whatever we think about is constantly being impressed on this law, which receives it and manifests it in our lives. And he doesn't say this, but it does that to the extent that we put feelings in. So you can have all the thoughts you want going in there, and not much is going to happen, if anything. But it's the feeling attached to those thoughts that causes things to happen. And if you just got feelings going in but nothing attached to it, then that gives universal mind no direction as to what to do. So the feelings on their own don't do anything, and the thoughts on their own don't do anything. It's the combination of the two things together put into universal mind that actually produces what is the result in a manifestation. So that's my explanation, and you can pretty much take that to the bank. Everything I think, say, and do, and I would add, and feel, everything I think, say, do, and feel is impressed on immutable spiritual law that governs how my life unfolds. You've got to add in that experience of feeling for things to happen. And remember, belief is thought plus feeling. Belief is thought plus feeling. And that is what has this impact on the universal subjective. And that's according to Ernest Holmes and lots of other people. And nowadays that is called New Thought. But as you can see, going back to Marcus Aurelius, what is he around? 200-300? So anyway, for all intents and purposes, almost 2,000 years ago. And he was saying exactly the same things that we're saying now. And they were said by the Egyptians and others long before that, just as much before Marcus Aurelius as he is to us. So for lots and lots of human history, wise people have been saying this. So who am I to dispute them? Today you should have had a reading from our practitioner Danielle Johnson. If you didn't get it already, she will be doing that. And tomorrow morning, Reverend Lisa will come back with her offering, and I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully around about 5, with my offering for tomorrow. So my knowingness for everyone is that we are open to receiving and accepting the universal good that flows from universal mind. And I release this word into that universal mind, calling it good and done and glad and joyful and grateful, and so it is.